Hello and welcome in. It is a Friday edition of the Magic Valley Prepcast here on the IdahoSports.com YouTube channel, Facebook page, and X account. Thank you for being with us live here on a Friday morning as we talk about some of the biggest headlines from Magic Valley High School athletics in the week that was. My name is Brandon Baney. Let's bring on our Magic Valley resident and expert, the one, the only Wonder Boy, Scott Burton. What's going on, Scotty?
Brandon, what's shaking? Looks like you might be in a hotel room, my friend.
Yes, Brandon Baney broadcasting live from insert hotel here in Pocatello. I'm in my old. This is the city I lived in for 5 years before I moved to North Idaho a couple years ago. I am back in Pocatello for the Rocky Mountain Rumble, which starts today at 1:00 on IdahoSports.com.
So, the Rumble, man! What a great event that is. I mean, I remember when that thing got off the ground and broadcasting all day from there. Some fantastic memories. I remember we were doing a Rumble game. God, this had to have been 10 years ago at least or whatever. We had teams from Canada that came down, and I can't remember who I was broadcasting with. It might have been Paul. I don't remember. But we were doing our best to act Canadian, so it's like, that was a good play, and whatever. Oh, pass the maple, whatever stupid stuff that we would say. And we had so much interaction with those fans that were in Canada watching that we had an open email line on this other computer that was just getting flooded. Like, hey, say this. This is what we say. No, we don't say that. We say this. And so, we were just having the time of our life with these guys. And I remember we had an Alaskan team down one year. We had a lot of teams out of Nevada that came up. There's a lot of Utah teams this year, and so it really is a cool thing. But I just have so many fond memories of broadcasting the Rumble, interacting with those fan bases from wherever they were. Man, what an awesome event.
Yeah, I think I found our podcast episode title, Pass the Maple.
Yeah, right. Pass the Maple. Yeah. Yep. Oh gosh, that was so much fun. Fun.
Yeah. So for those that may not know, the Rocky Mountain Rumble is a 2-day football showcase event. It's Idaho schools versus out-of-state opponents over the past years. They've come from Washington, Oregon, California, Alaska, Utah, Canada. Last year there was a team that came from California. Kimberly played them, actually. Sutter Union from California.
Yeah.
So it's a cool event. It's a chance for Idaho teams to go inside the ICCU Dome at Idaho State University, play on the turf, play in front of a large crowd. It's a really good time for sure. Last year, Scott, Soldotna, Alaska came down and played, and they are kind of I guess they'd be kind of like a 3A school here in Idaho, but they're like a powerhouse. They run the triple option. It's a well-oiled machine. Their coach at the Rocky Mountain Rumble last year, their team beat Teton, and with that win, he became Alaska's all-time wins leader in high school football. So that was kind of cool. That was a moment we got to broadcast last year on IdahoSports.com, Alaska high school football history. So
wow, Soldotna, Alaska.
Yeah,
who would have? That's a town of. It's a salmon fishing town, kind of on the Kenai River, about 4,000 people strong. But yeah, very, very cool. And you don't think like Alaska has football, but they do.
Yeah,
and that's pretty cool. And that's pretty cool. It's a beautiful area. Love Alaska, and where they're at right now. It's kind of in the southern part, kind of where the bay is, where the Gulf of Alaska is, just south of Anchorage. Beautiful area.
Yes. And then the other fun fact about that Alaska team last year was we interviewed after every game the IdahoSports.com player of the game, and it was a running back from the Soldotna team. And so I'm on the field interviewing him, and I'm like, hey, I heard you guys came down a little early. You flew into Salt Lake, actually, and you got to go to University of Utah football game. They played on a Thursday night. Then you guys came and played on Saturday. So that was probably a pretty cool experience. I said, is this your first time in Idaho? And he said, yeah, pretty much for all of us. It's our first time in Idaho. And I was like, okay, cool. Hey, what did you think of our state? And he looks at me and he goes, I got to be honest, you guys are kind of boring up here.
Well, we don't have grizzly bears chasing you at every turn, I mean, come on. It's a little different. And but I get it. I used to go, fishing in Alaska every year on a yearly trip. And you could always tell. I mean, we would fly in and take a puddle jumper to the middle of nowhere, but you would it's like you would step off into a different world, and you knew you were in a different world because it is not the same. Alaska is a different planet. Everything is so much like bigger, and it's dense, and it's gorgeous. But you can put yourself in any mountain range here and say, you know what, this isn't Alaska. If you have never experienced Alaska, do yourself a favor, and at some time in your life, go. It doesn't matter where. You can go to Kodiak and run with the Grizzlies. That's fine. You can go to the southern part, do some great fishing, or you can go where they make reality shows and freeze. I don't, whatever. But do yourself a favor and go. Gorgeous.
Yeah, for sure. So the Rocky Mountain Rumble, it starts today on IdahoSports.com, 1:00. It's actually an all Idaho matchup. One of the teams from Utah dropped out. And so Nick Sorrell, the Highland head coach here in Pocatello, asked a couple of local 8-man teams like, hey, we had a slot open at the Rumble. You guys want to play your game inside the dome? So Rockland and Showban, 2 Idaho 8-man conference rivals, going to go head-to-head first at 1:00 today. That'll be a really fun moment for those kids, especially for Showban, which hasn't had a football team since, 2019. Like pre-COVID was the last time Showban had enough kids for a team. So this is going to be a cool experience for those kids. That's followed by Mountain View and Farmington, Utah at 4:00. And then tonight in the nightcap, 7:00, Kimberly taking on Layton Christian from Utah. And then there's games on Saturday as well. But Kimberly is the team we want to hone in on. I promise it's not going to be the Kimberly Bulldog football show every week here on the Magic Valley Prepcast. We talked about them last week because they had that huge matchup with Fruitland. And then obviously a big matchup tonight against Layton Christian, and some complications to what Kimberly is trying to do as a team. So let's start there, Scott. That game last Saturday, it was on IdahoSports.com. If you just looked at the final score, Fruitland 49, Kimberly 13, you'd go, boy, Fruitland is a lot better than we thought, and maybe Kimberly isn't where we thought they were at preseason. But there's like some complicating factors to this situation here at Kimberly, and that is quarterbacks are dropping like flies over there.
Holy cow. Tell me about it. This is where the story behind the box score comes in, because that score is not indicative of anything that Kimberly does or will do, but they're down to their 12th string quarterback right now. Some of the hype coming in for Kimberly was, McCray Bruning and his ability to make plays and find his other playmakers in space and just have a solid quarterback. But that never happened because he's got a small fracture in his throwing hand. And so that kind of took him out of the quarterback spot, but he's too good of an athlete, and the injury wasn't severe enough to keep him off the field, but he just couldn't throw the ball. So they had to move him to receiver and safety. And then, so they had other people step up. Okay. Gunnar Beckstead is one of those people. He stepped in, and good athletic kid, great arm, but then he breaks his finger on a throw in the first quarter against Fruitland. And so now what are they doing? I mean, so it is has anybody ever played quarterback around here? Raise your hand. You did it on Sega or Sega. I think I just dated myself. But what are the kids doing now? Okay, you have that familiarity, fine, you're in. And that's kind of where they're at right now. And I guess the good thing for Kimberly is that it's preseason games. I mean, before they get into conference play, better have it happen now than happen down the road when they're into those conference games and trying to find some rhythm in their season.
Yeah, you'd rather it happen at the front end of the season than the back end when you're hopefully preparing for a playoff push. So McCray Bruning, all-state quarterback, he ends up getting hurt in practice, before the start of the season, to the point where he I'm trying to remember what he did. Did he fracture his thumb? See, I feel like I'm like one of those ESPN insiders, and it's like the NFL injury report here on Friday. Yeah. McCray Bruning, a fracture in his right thumb, so he can't, and that's his throwing arm, right? He throws right-handed, so he can't throw the football, but he can still go out there and play. We see this sometimes where basically they'll put the big club on, right, the hand. So he's out there playing wide receiver, which is impressive considering he has a club on one hand. He actually caught a pass on Saturday. And then, he really, where it comes in handy, Scott, is on defense, because, you can go in and make tackles and club people with that cast.
Yeah, right. Yeah. And he's just one of those athletes that they have to have on the field in whatever capacity, so, they hope to have him back in a few weeks playing quarterback. And if that's the case, then, hopefully that he can kind of step right in. And I mean, he's good enough. He's been there. If the hand's good enough, he'll step right back into things, and Kimberly will just take off again. But in the interim, they've got to figure some things out. And, they're including some people like Al Santos, a sophomore quarterback. He's got a quarter this week that they can use, because all these kids are like on limits of how much they can play. Santos has a quarter left, so they're going to try to maybe use him. And so this is where they're at right now, with the quarterback position. And, when you look at Kimberly football, what you see athletes and speed and space and spread. And that's what they do. It's not that they're like these giant kids or these offensive linemen that just push people around and they, run it through the A gap and all. They spread, they get their athletes in space. They've got a great quarterback. You're not going to see much of any of that this week, against Layton Christian, because they don't have Bruning or that kid that can get the ball to the athletes. So if you're used to watching Kimberly football and seeing all that this week, watch it on the Rumble, watch it on Idaho Sports, and you're going to see a Kimberly team that maybe you haven't seen ever. Yeah. I think it's interesting, and I feel for Coach Joe Dilley, because this is not something that you plan for. You can scheme against other defenses and teams and kind of what they do, and whether blitz, gap coverage, defensively, it doesn't matter. This is something that you don't plan for, and so this tests you. So I mean, I can only imagine what they're going through.
Yeah. So Bruning, they knew coming into the Fruitland game, Bruning was going to be out. Well, QB2 is Gunnar Beckstead, a junior, and he had taken all the varsity reps all week in practice, played well in that first quarter. Opening drive, led the Bulldogs all the way down the field and hit Joe Barrett for a 10-yard touchdown to tie the game up at 7. But then next possession, second possession of the game, Kimberly ends up turning the ball over on downs. And Beckstead comes off the field, and he's like, I'm in agony over here. He hurt his finger, essentially. He was throwing a pass, Scott, and on the follow-through, it hit the helmet of one of the Fruitland defenders. And so his finger got kind of like bent out of shape, and it's a dislocation, I guess. And they're hoping he can be back somewhat soonish. He's the guy that you could plug in there and still run that spread offense for Kimberly, because he's taken the reps. He's comfortable in it. He's played quarterback at the lower levels, but all of a sudden he's out. And so now, like you said, okay, well, who's our next QB? Well, it's this sophomore, Al Santos. Well, he's a sophomore. He's kind of the JV quarterback this year. And the rules are in Idaho high school football, if you're a JV and varsity hybrid player, you get 5 quarters of action during the week. And it's up to the coaching staff to determine, okay, do we do 3 quarters of JV, 2 quarters of varsity? Is it 4 quarters of JV, 1 quarter of varsity? It sounds like that's what they're doing with Santos, is all 4 quarters of JV, and then they've got him for 1 quarter for the varsity if they want to. But that 5-quarter rule only applies if the JV and varsity games are on different dates. If they're on the same night, which is what happened last Saturday, JV played first, then the varsity followed, you only get 4 quarters if it's all in one day. So Santos had used all 4 of his quarters, so that he wasn't even an option. Like, I don't even know if he suited up for the Kimberly game, because they knew he didn't have any quarters. So, So then you go, wow, we don't have any actual quarterbacks on the roster. Then you start it's like Vince Papale and the tryout for the Eagles, right? Back in the 1980s. You're starting to look at, okay, what kind of athletes do we have here? And so they went a couple of different ways. They took Cy Walker, who is the starting defensive back, and they put him in at quarterback. He had played quarterback in the past. He's a senior, Scott. The last time he's played QB was his freshman year on the JV team. So it's, been a couple of years, but he at least has kind of played it before. And then they also took Titus Osterman from wide receiver and kind of put him in the backfield along with running back Johnny Millenkamp. And they kind of did a wildcat thing where they would take turns taking snaps. And so I think those are the two directions you could see Kimberly go tonight. Osterman even went to the coaching staff and was like, hey, if you need me to, we don't just have to run out of this wildcat. I could, dial up a pass or two. And he ends up throwing a 75-yard touchdown pass to Joe Barrett, a kid who's never played quarterback before.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it is, you talk about just kind of drawing plays in the dirt and playground ball. This is kind of where you're at this point. I mean, they're literally taking guys off of defense to play offense because of their injury situation. And so it doesn't just affect the quarterback position. It's affecting the defense too, because they're taking, these athletes off of the defensive side of the ball, trying to make them play offense now, basically kind of thumbing through the playbook, as if you will. Okay, this is what you're going to do. This is you're going to run to the Subaru and post to the left, whatever. It doesn't matter. But that affects the defense because now those kids dialed in on defense are having to do some things they're not used to doing. And that does take away from, that defensive focus and, the physicality, the stamina, all that kind of stuff. So it does have a domino effect when something like this happens. And, and the thing about Kimberly, Kimberly's a great place. And Kimberly, year after year after year, just has athletes, period, plain and simple. That's why they're in the conversation every stinking year, and this is going to be a year that they're going to remember because they had to patchwork the entire offense because of this. And fortunately, it's at the beginning of the season where they can get some stuff figured out. And we may not even be talking about this in like 6 weeks when they're getting ready to make a playoff run or whatever. But for right now, holy crap, all hands on deck.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it for sure. So one last note from Kimberly, and then we'll move on to our second story today. So Scott, you were part of the broadcast crew Saturday on IdahoSports.com. We had that doubleheader, right? The Logos Hagerman game, which Logos won and put on a clinic. And then the game at night was Kimberly and Fruitland. And so you were there for the first game. And then our duo of Dallin Fryer and Tyson Chapman took the reins for the second game. That was your first time working with those guys, right?
Yeah, it was. Chapman was talk about just fresh out of the crib. He came, hey, my name's Tyson Chapman, and I, Tim's his dad, and we all know who he is, and I'm kind of want to get into this, and I've never seen a microphone before. I don't know, is that a football game? Whatever. I mean, that's how green and whatever. Throw him into the fire. Let's go on that first day. And the plan originally was for me to take the reins play by play on both of them. So they could, watch and learn or whatever. And I had a conflict on that second one. And those two just were like, okay, hey, this is yours. And they got the Kimberly Fruitland game. But it was a great time. Great dudes. Yeah.
Dallin did a great job on that second game. And then he texts me after the game like, hey, here's what happened to Gunnar Beckstead. And then he sends me a picture of his x-ray. And I'm like, how did you get this? Are you Adam Schefter? Like, what did you ask?
Really?
Did you ask his parent? Like, what? Like, so I didn't feel comfortable sharing the X-ray here on the show. But yeah, he texted me a picture of the X-ray, and I'm like, but the picture's been going around on social media and stuff. So,
Nice. We may have stumbled into a gem on that one if he's going to be some sort of investigative reporter.
Yeah. Hey, I know who I'm going to turn to if I need to find something out. Yeah.
Yeah. Dang. Yeah, I mean, they stumbled right into that story, when they got to that game. And so, I mean, even though the game wasn't close, they had still plenty of stuff to talk about, when you're talking about x-rays and fingers and like, whatever else was going on. But man, definitely a story.
Yes, for sure. And then on the other side, of course, Fruitland's got Titus Fidlack, who's starting to get Division I offers at quarterback, and it's just perfectly polished and everything. And he, of course, played really well. So Yes. Okay. We're going to switch gears now, Scott, and talk a little girls soccer. Soccer season off and rolling. A lot of Magic Valley teams are playing well. I've already seen a couple of hat tricks from the Magic Valley from some individuals in both boys and girls soccer. I wanted to hone in on the season opener, though, for community school, Sun Valley Community School, the Cutthroats. On the girls' side, because we've talked a lot about the Cutthroats boys soccer program over the years and the great job that Richard does coaching them. But the Cutthroat girls are also kind of perennially at state and kind of, perennially underrated a little bit. And so I love what Sun Valley does every year. They try to find the best 4A teams outside of their conference and schedule matches against them. And so for the girls, they called up Teton. Teton's been a really good program from East Idaho. And they said, hey, let's meet in our season opener and play. And so they met on Saturday. 1-0 victory for the Cutthroats. So Coach Kelly Feldman's Cutthroats off to a great start, I thought, here.
Oh, yeah, it is. I mean, this is a team that's got 7 returning seniors, and so this is a really, really good team. And, when you talk about the community school, the boys soccer tends to dominate the conversation. I mean, we're talking really small school, but this is a girls team now, led by, captains Piper Schmitz and Scarlett Caruth, who are back because they missed chunks of the season last year due to injury, and so they needed them back. And so now they are 7 seniors on this team, with some really good underclassmen that are contributing, and they got a center back who's a freshman, Wells Dolson, and she was the player of the game against Teton, because of her work in defending, and she had a tough spot to fill because she had to fill that spot vacated by, Audrey Morowitz, the all-state selection, so they're gelling right now. This is a really, really good team, and they've got a lot going for them right now.
Yeah. Brynlee Gage scored the lone goal of the match in the early stages of the second half. And then, like you said, the defense really put the clamps down on a Teton team that was pretty proficient last year. And that's pretty big for a freshman, first career varsity match, Scott, to win player of the match. That's pretty good.
Yeah. Not bad at all, and, to keep a team like Teton scoreless. I mean, you've got to have contributions from all sides, and in the midfield, they got a great performance from Perry DiGennaro, who's, kind of a newcomer to the team. And then, Riley Miller in midfield, and you talked about Gage, Gage had 16 goals last year. So they've got the pieces to be really good because, like I said, you got Gage coming back, who's a goal scorer. You've got your injured captains back, and then you've got some young kids stepping up and doing well. And then, Torrin Vandenberg in the goal is, junior, and she's doing a great job. So you look at the pieces around this Sun Valley team, and they've got a lot of good things happening. And the thing and you talk to Kelly about this group, and it's like they're fun, they're happy, they're hardworking, because we've seen so many teams that have this talent, but they just don't gel. And when you don't gel and you don't have that kind of vibe going, it doesn't matter really how talented you are because you don't have the togetherness. And I think that this group here in Sun Valley, not only do they have the talent, but they've got that vibe and that togetherness. And so, it's going to be a really, really good season if they can keep it together. And they're 2-0. They beat Teton 1-0. They then went to Bliss and beat them 6-0. And, Piper had a hat trick and Brynlee had 2 goals and an assist. So keep your eye on this team. They're going to be something to watch.
Off and running for sure. Last year, the Cutthroats, in a very competitive conference, they went 13-0-1. Scott, they won the regular season title. They went 16-4-2 overall. Kimberly was really good last year. Buell was excellent last year as well. And so for the Cutthroats, having 7 returning starters come back, obviously from last year's team that got to state, and their run at state was very interesting. For those that don't remember, they played Buell in the district championship game and won that in overtime, 2-1. Well, because of now Max Preps seeds the teams at state, they had to play Buell right away again in the first round at state. Buell got them back and won 1-0. So then they're in the loser side of the bracket. They had to play Coeur d'Alene Charter in a match that went to penalty kicks. Sun Valley won 6-5 on PKs. So like the maximum you could go. They were perfect. 6 for 6. And then they get to the consolation against Marsh Valley, and they fall 2-0 because they were just out of steam. It was a very rigorous road at state last year. So they definitely got some unfinished business this year. And I'm excited to see what they can put together. And just conversely for Teton, to kind of check in on how they're doing since this, big clash with Sun Valley. They actually got a match in the day before against Shelley, and they beat a 5A school, Shelley, 4-2. Then they lost to the Cutthroats, of course, the next day, Saturday. And then I think they had some pent-up aggression, Scott, because last night they played Snake River and scored a touchdown. They won 7-0.
Yeah. I mean, you can say a lot about what happens in the non-conference games at the start of the year. And we won, but who did you play? Did you play like a bunch of JV teams or whatever that pad your record but don't really test you? Teton is a test, and so out of the gate, the Cutthroats are taking on Teton, and that's a huge win because Teton is good. They're perennially good, so it's not like they just had some sort of patsy they scheduled. They went out of the gates quick, and the Teton's going to be something we're going to be talking about in a couple of months when it comes down, to state, and so is this Cutthroat team.
Yeah. So good job, Lady Cutthroats. Keep up the good work. We'll keep checking in on them as the season goes along here. And of course, that entire High Desert Conference, there's like 8 teams. It's the largest conference amongst all the 4A's conferences. And there's a lot of 2A schools that are playing up. Or there's a lot of 2A and 3A schools that play up. It's 4A soccer. That's the lowest you can go. So schools like Declo and Bliss, who co-ops with Glens Ferry and the community school. So that's what I really love to see is these smaller schools competing against the Sugar Salems, the Tetons, the bigger schools like that too. So.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, you're talking about all those teams. I mean, it's all the 4As, like you just mentioned, and then you throw in Declo and Wendell and the community school. I mean, yeah, it's a pretty crazy looking conference, from bigger schools to smaller schools. I mean, Kimberly's one of the bigger 4As in the state. In fact, Teton and Kimberly, I think, are some of maybe the top 2 biggest, schools in their classification. And here are the Cutthroats, stepping up and playing in this conference against these bigger schools and holding their own.
Yeah, a lot of fun for sure. So, all right, Scott, well, that'll do it for this edition of the Magic Valley Prepcast. I should be back at the home base next week, not on the road. So,
hey, before I was kind of thinking about, now that right now at this time, sports is amazing because this is where you're going to get the baseball overlapping with college football and pro football, and for a sports fan, there really isn't a better time. And then you factor in like all the stuff that's going on in high school sports. I mean, there's going to be stuff to talk about. So I'm kind of thinking, okay. And I always think before we come on, okay, what am I going to wear?
I didn't even ask you. Yeah. I didn't even ask about it. Yeah.
Yeah. And then what's my moniker? I mean, I don't know. I'm kind of goofy that way, but Wonder Boy. And if anybody's out there and they know what I'm talking about, let me know. Because I've got, and I think a couple of years ago we did this, Brandon, and I mean I've got like so many of like these jerseys and from sports movies that because now's the best time, I think I'm going to break them out for a run. And and so this week is the first one, okay, and it's that. Right there, one of the best sports movies of all time. And I'll leave it at that.
Yep. And then you can reveal next week on the show what it was. We'll see if anybody can write in Scott at IdahoSports.com or Brandon at IdahoSports.com if you know the answer. Or maybe somebody in the comments. Let's see here, Scott. This is our good friend Hayden from the North Idaho Podcast. I think that was before I was born. All right.
I'm sure it was. But it's still awesome. It's still one of the best sports movies ever.
Yep, for sure. So, okay, send your guesses in. And hey, if there's a cool story happening in the Magic Valley, you can always send it in to Scott or I as well. Scott at IdahoSports.com or Brandon at IdahoSports.com. A lot of good football on tap here on a Friday. IdahoSports.com. First game kicks off at 1. So if you're at work and you're looking to kill a little time before the weekend, we got you covered. You can tune in on IdahoSports.com. Totally free to watch.
Yep, I'll be tuning in, and you guys you'll kill it. And I hope to be back in the dome with you guys real soon, calling those games. So have a blast. Great time.
Yep. All right. Well, for Scott Burton, I'm Brandon Baney. Thanks for tuning into the Magic Valley Prepcast, everybody. We'll see you next week on IdahoSports.com.